We're gathered here today to discuss the Aaron Wiggins career night the other night. That's the emergency pod.
Exactly. Nothing else.
Nothing else that happened. The Aaron Wiggins 41-point game. That's what we're here to talk about. I actually legitimately, when I saw his stat line, I wrote it down, joking with the next pod, and then this happened. And so, yeah, that was my intro. And so let's just jump into it. Like, you've been on here 1,000 times, and people know, and everything will be on the screen and it'll be in the description. Let's not waste any time. I've been thinking through this for the last 24 hours because, like, for transparency for folks, we're doing this basically 24 hours after it happened, right in the middle of this Bucks-Grizzlies game at 9 o'clock on Sunday, the day after, well, the night of that happened. Luka and Anthony Davis have been traded in a 3-team trade, and I'm just going to read it. We're going to talk about it, but I feel like I had these whirlwind of thoughts in the last 24 hours, and we get started, and I'm actually in front of a microphone that's being recorded, and it matters, and people can hear it. And now I'm speechless again. I think that's so. I'm going to read the trade that'll help me like kind of kick things off, and I'll just let you go wherever you want to go to start. This is straight from Dave McMenamin. I can't even like it. Anyway, I'll tell everybody how I found out in just a minute. The Lakers received Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris from the Mavericks. Dallas acquires Anthony Davis, that is, Max Christie, and the Lakers 2029 first-round pick. Not the 2031 one as well, just the 2029. We'll jump into that in a minute. And then the Jazz, Danny Ainge, like a second-round pick crack addict, decides to jump up in here, and he gets Jalen Hood-Schifino, who I still really like. I liked him at Indiana. That was one of the last years I did a full board and really studied that stuff. I really like that kid. I think he's got good potential. The Clippers 2025 second-round pick, and the Mavericks 2025 second-round pick as well. Other than utter shock and terror, what was like, how did you let's do this. How did you find out first? Because you texted me last night. I'll just say this really quick. I normally stay up for every St. Mary's game that I can on Saturday night, St. Mary's College. People are like, why are we talking about St. Mary's College? This is an NBA emergency pod. College basketball still matters to me, and I still watch it, and I keep up with it, and I talk about it. St. Mary's Gonzaga was last night, just for context. And I was like, this game's a blowout. St. Mary's is up. It's hard for teams like that to come back. I don't even know who won the game, to be honest with you. That's how the lethargic the last 12 to 18 hours has been. And I was like, all right, look, they're up at half. I'm going to bed. Nothing can possibly happen in college basketball. Not even thinking that the NBA trade deadline, I know, is close enough that I probably shouldn't have done that. And so I was like, you know what? We had a lot going on today. Let me just go to bed. I wake up to my wife holding a phone in my face, and she says, "You're not going to believe this." That was how I found out. When I realized it was an ESPN notification, not a photo, then it wasn't fake because it had been 8 hours at that point.
Right.
Reality set in what had happened. And so how did you find out? And what, other than shock and terror, what was like your initial reaction?
I was about to go to bed myself. It was about 12:15 Eastern-ish, somewhere in that realm.
I think it was like 12:23. I mean, you were like right on. Right there.
Yeah. Usually when I call it a day, even on the weekends. And I get a text from another Lakers fan I know. Shout out to Larry if you're listening. And he texts in all caps, "Oh my God, I got up to go to the bathroom and Luka's a Laker." And I'm thinking, like,
what a way to
I don't
out.
think he does hard drugs, but that's just not true. And so, of course, I go get my phone, and there are a billion texts on it of people.
I had 100. I had like 112
fake?
Text messages last night.
Is Shams hacked? Is Shams just going full heel and faking things for FanDuel like he did in that Scoot draft? Like, what is going on? And so I literally was on my phone for 10 solid minutes, checking every NBA source I've ever once referenced in my life, thinking like someone's going to say like, "Gotcha," or "This isn't real," or, "Just kidding, tune into the trade deadline Thursday," like something to rival Super Bowl weekend. And no, it was real. When Aaron Wiggins goes off in any manner, let alone 40 points, Thunder fans like to joke and say he saved basketball. And he did for about 2 hours. And then the Dallas Mavericks decided to ruin it. shout out to the Clippers. They're off the hook. Paul George shade trade, was it
Thank
terrible?
you. I'm so
Sure.
glad. It
This
took
is
5 minutes on the
so-
nose for you to bring this up. It took
This
5
is
minutes.
so
on
bad. This is so much worse. It's like, okay, where's page 2 with the other 17 picks for this 25-year-old top 3 player in the world? Oh, they're not there. They didn't even ask. This was Dallas's idea. And last thing quickly to start. This Dallas GM came from the apparel brand universe, Nike. He was the idiot that had Steph Curry in a conference room, called him Seth at least once by accident, and showed him Kevin Durant's Nike presentation, which is why Steph Curry will not wear a swoosh his entire life.
Which, by the way, that's people think this story just like appeared because of this trade. Like, that's been a story forever. Like, this is a thing that is out there.
That should have ended his career in anything close to. I can't believe he went from that to a GM
of one of the best NBA franchises right now.
Like, that is the defining thing in your career in the same sport. And someone's like, yeah, I want him to run my team. And you just, whatever fringe chance Dallas had as far as staying power with the Lively injury and the Luka injury, honestly, he was slated to come back in about a week. Of running back their defense of the Western Conference, they just nuked it. It's done. Anthony Davis is an incredible player. There's not 20, not 15 players better than him in the world, but there's just such a chasm between a guy like Luka and a guy like Anthony Davis, especially when you consider they're 6 years apart in age. How this didn't include more picks than, the Gobert trade, the Bridges trade. You go back and look, Anthony Davis got to the Lakers for more first-round picks than this took. That was years ago, and the market has only gone up, and they've suddenly taken the first only lowest offer that they somehow came up with. None of this makes sense. David Stern is livid somewhere, wherever he is, because one, he would have vetoed this, and two, there's no frame of reference for it, honestly, across sports. It's that, the initial reaction was, this is fake. No one believed it. Shams had to tweet. He's the most respected guy in that space now as far as breaking news in sports. Him, Schefter, Rap Sheet. He had to preface the tweet by saying this is real. Like, that's
it was
how
the beginning of it.
Comical
led
this
it
was.
with it. Yeah.
A 50 million impression in 30 minutes tweet had to start with, I'm not kidding. This is what they've come across the league wire with.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things I want to get into. And I'll just, as someone who missed the late night theatrics, because most people didn't go to bed until about 2 or 3, and I just couldn't have done that. The part I'm struggling with, every person, I watched SportsCenter for an hour this morning. I know, not the best place to hear about this trade and in-depth thoughts about it. All three people that I respect called it the most insane. I'm paraphrasing here because I didn't take a lot of notes just to kind of absorb today. Called it basically the most insane or most ridiculous or most just unbelievable trade in NBA history. So my question is that's the truth? Like, we're all in agreement that that's the case. Yes.
Without going back and deep into the history books,
they're comparing it to Green. Like, I don't know.
It would probably take that long to find something equivalent, because picks weren't just thrown around back then. The draft was different. It was a different game, essentially.
If you have the star, you lost the trade every time. Like, there was no if, and, but Charles Barkley made this point, and it was incredible. Like, when you're right. Yes, it's true. But like, you literally gave up. Like, Charles said to a T, he's like, if you have the star, normally you get crud back or whatever, right? And like, that's what the picks are for, to supplement that. And it's probably one of the best things he's ever said. And I was like,
yeah,
he's right. Like, Kareem, like, name the 3 guys that got traded for Kareem. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't, and I won't, because I don't know. I only ask that because clearly, I know you mentioned Harrison already, but clearly there was enough there to believe and think that this was a legitimate. Like, there's probably something yet that people talk about the weight. We can get into all that, but like, there's something that just isn't. There's something missing here. Not necessarily pieces, but
There has to be.
I just there's this doesn't. I get it's the Lakers. I get the staying power. I want to talk about like kind of the weird parallels with Powell in a little bit. I think you probably knew where I was
it's out of
going with
nowhere.
that, and that people still are angry about that to this day, and it ended up being 2 championships for the Lakers. I know comparison wise, those guys are not exactly the same level player, but I cannot fathom the fact that like Ryan Russillo said it best. Like Luka could have been smoking cigarettes bringing the ball up the last 5 years. And he's like, I would have a wet ink pen ready with a piece of paper to sign him
courtside. Are you kidding me? I mean, yeah,
I don't get it. I'm just lost on the sheer nature. I think once the shock wears off, I think we'll all like when they both play their first game in these uniforms. Like it, I think it will help some. I think it'll mellow out some of the expectation of what this turned into. But like. This is basically like Peyton Manning getting traded in his prime. Like he was the second best quarterback. Luka's a top 5 guy. Like this is like unprecedented stuff that doesn't happen. And I just don't know. I'm talking through the emotions of it. I don't know.
I mean, Luka has a calf strain, not a debilitating neck injury. That's the main difference in those two.
I'm talking 5 years before the neck injury for Manning. Like even like just prime, fresh off the Super Bowl. Let's just trade him. They made the finals last year.
Yeah, they did. I
don't get it. I'm like genuinely 15 minutes in being like, nothing makes sense. And we haven't talked a single second about the value on any side of the trade. Forget Utah. Like, who cares? Like, it's not.
That's Danny Ainge being bored with a cell phone that had battery left. That's all that is. I mean, to your point about the draft picks, yeah, that's why you put the draft picks in there because you're losing. I mean, the Paul George trade looks so bad because it's a very rare case of get the star, lose the trade. That's just how rare that's supposed to be when you kind of draw these things out and you like, okay, we're going to take a 3-year look back or a 5-year look back. Like, I mean, the Gobert trade in hindsight, that was like half a dozen picks. And all Gobert did was be unplayable in the playoffs in a different city and win individual defensive awards in a different city in a team that still has not won a title. And Minnesota had a chance to advance past the West Conference Finals last year, but they fell to Dallas and the rest is history. But I mean, and then they got rid of Towns, and that was a bit of a seismic shift. That was right before the season started, and the Knicks were involved in that. But I just couldn't believe it. I believe the trade because at its core, there's something to be done with a Davis-Luka trade. But like when you stop like 6 bullet points short of what I think the Lakers side of that should look like, I can't fathom it. I know they were very strapped for assets and they really only had the 29 and the 31 and there's restrictions all over the place. And I mean, because I was listening to Russillo a bit today, jumping on with Bill Simmons last night, and he was just like, you know, they're kind of posed a question, make a Luka Lakers trade that makes sense. And it's like, it's almost hard to at all, let alone with the format we were given. I mean, Reeves certainly in there, connect, throw him in there. If you don't have picks, you're going to have to give up guys. I mean, if this is Luka to the Thunder, I'm thinking one of J-Dub and Chet is gone. Plus, you know, half of the 87 first-round picks we have in the next 5 years, because at that point, it's Luka or kids sitting in Algebra 2 right now. Like, it's just not – you take the superstar, and I don't think we've seen a caliber player of Luka getting traded this young in a very long time. He's 26 at the end of the month, which is right around the time that Dallas and the Lakers actually match up for the first time. I will be locked into that.
Cleared my schedule.
But it's just
where I'm going to be.
And then Dallas trots out today, and they're down 50-19 after a quarter against the Cavaliers. And it really starts to settle in that, like, that locker room doesn't love it either. So it was clearly not a case of addition by subtraction where there's a guy, I hate to bag on him every time, but it's the easiest one to pick from, like a Kyrie or a Harden, where he rubs people the wrong way. There's just a clear disconnect between, 10, 11 guys and 1 or 2, and there's kind of a sense of relief. They went out today and got embarrassed, and they were embarrassed online last night, and they went on the court and they compounded their issues. And I know when Anthony Davis is back on the floor, they will be a better team. Their ceiling has fallen miles, and their floor might not change that much based on where they're at right now this season. but they will not be back in the NBA Finals, let alone maybe the second round at this point. I mean, I hate that Anthony Davis, another Charles Barkley golden thing was the street clothes nickname moniker, and it sticks because it keeps happening. And he, last year played excellent, was pretty durable last year, but as we've seen a bit so far this year, it just hasn't quite stuck. And it's odd that both of the guys were hurt at the time of the trade. Just makes it a little weird because we won't see debuts for a little while. But Luka, he was approaching 270 pounds. Who cares? Zion's like 330 walking around, and they can't. Well, they probably can't get out of that. But I mean,
they can. His contract is structured like basically as non-guaranteed after this year. It's gross. Like
there's a lot of stipulations in there about health and wellness type stuff, which is
someone brought it up.
Do that if you're Dallas. Do that. I don't.
Someone brought it up a few weeks ago. Like if Zion, this would never happen, but like if he got traded, a team could technically get sick of him, and it would actually be less value. Like it would be that a team could trade for Zion, understanding the risk, and they could literally just waive him, and it would cost them less than it would be. Than keeping him. Like it just that's how bad the contract is. The 5th year.
Wow, we may see that. That's crazy.
That year he'd have to get moved first, and I just at this point I don't know
how much can the NBA universe handle in the next 5 days? I mean, this is.
Oh, don't worry. Like, and the title's not going to just say Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis emergency trade. We literally waited a few minutes
to
do something, and we're sitting here, and you said something to me as you joined, and I thought you were joking. You're like, Fox is a Spur, and I'm like, awesome, because that's not going to add 30 more minutes of content today. So yeah, we're going to get to it. Here's a crazy question though. Like, is it not far-fetched to think that Dallas has now one guy on the entire roster that can grade his own shot?
No, it's not at all.
How does that help you win a championship?
It doesn't. And I honestly I had forgotten that he had done this, but that Brian Windhorst scorched earth after Game 3 thing, put that in the Basketball Media Hall of Fame because every word of that was true. It's still not an excuse to not give a player. Danny Ainge would murder people to draft and not give an extension to. But I mean, you tank like the process Sixers forever to get a player 80% as promising as Luka Doncic, and to cut bait on that whole deal after you honestly, I mean, they fleeced Atlanta draft night. Now hindsight is very clear now, but at the time,
1,000% still did. I'll never back down from that. I have his resume in front of me.
No, you can't revisionist history because Luka left out. No, that trade as it stands,
Dallas won that trade. 5 straight All NBA first teams. LeBron didn't
not
going
to stop, by the way. Right. That will be 6 and 7. If you thought the Luka media bias was bad before, that was in Dallas. Now he's a Laker. Now he's in the purple and gold, and that's you can put that in pen. Whatever awards he's eligible for, I don't know off the top of my head how many games he's missed with the calf, but I know it's been a little extended.
He's only played 22 this year.
So he's not gonna. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I don't buy the we're nervous about paying him thing. Like 5 years, $345 million in 5 years is going to be like what number 2 guys get, because the cap just seemingly always goes up and TV deals always seemingly go up. And I just don't get balking in that manner, going to one team, offering the worst trade I've ever laid my eyes on. And then that was it. Like, you didn't go to Utah. You didn't go to Oklahoma City. You didn't go to Golden State. Just so many different avenues to go down. Who has assets? Who's desperate? Who has a guy like Steph? They want to try and get there one more time. Like, it's just so many options. And they went with the one that, had very little to offer, but apparently that was enough. And to your point, keeping half of their available first-round picks is ludicrous. And that, the details of that trade are going to get framed in Pelinka's office for the rest of time. Like, he's untouchable for as long as he wants. He pulled this off, regardless of how this Luka thing shakes out.
Or who cares if they even Dallas offered it. Like
I know.
Like, you successfully brought him here. If that's it, done. Like
that's your entire job.
Contract.
Is you amass talent, you find a coach, and it looks like JJ is going to be better than several previous editions of the head coach of the Lakers. And beyond that, Plinka's job is done. Right. Plinka's job is done for this year, next year. Does LeBron end up on the Warriors like a sunset tour with Steph? Maybe. Does he go back to Cleveland? Probably not. That's the next thing on the horizon, is kind of handling the LeBron exit, whether it be from the league or Los Angeles, whatever happens first. I struggle to think that he leaves the Lakers unless it's for something monumentous like a third tour in Cleveland or playing with Steph Curry finally. But I still give it like a 5% chance of happening. And I say that, and it'll probably come across my phone in about 90 seconds that he's a Warrior. But I've learned to assume nothing in the last 22 hours.
I actually think it's a great point. It's a great thought process, but I would argue that I think the Lakers have already solved their LeBron exit problem. You have Luka Doncic
from the Lakers, like the team standpoint, are you kidding me? Oh, it's
it's all at that point. He has no leverage. LeBron has no leverage left.
No,
it's over.
I don't.
He leaves.
There's nothing Clutch can do with the blacked out Suburbans to make this.
Any team would pay him a contract. It wouldn't be the max contract, probably at this rate. But like the Lakers have solved their problem. If you're a Lakers fan right now, you should be like burning. Okay, let me take that back. Pause. Let me not say that. You should be celebrating in the most responsible fashion possible that doesn't involve burning something. Because like Lakers fans all over the world right now are like, oh my God, we have like the third best player in the world on our team. And we had LeBron and we won a championship with him. Because as simple as it sounds, you had LeBron, you won a championship, you had Anthony Davis, who's going to be cemented forever. Like, I'm honestly shocked it was this fast for him to get this much love. I thought this trade was going to overcloud so much of just all the working parts of like different storylines and scenarios. And like, he was getting like touching tributes from fans all day today. And I thought it was going to take a week before you saw those. Well, yeah, it is.
I agree with that.
Win a championship. Like nothing matters in Los Angeles if you don't win a championship.
Right. They sold the farm to get him for that one explicit reason, and they got it done. Yes, it was 4 or 5 years ago, but it's still.
And yes, it was in the bubble. Let's just call it what it is. Like it was, right? But like,
I'm on the side of that was harder to do than a regular championship.
But... Oh, good. All right. Well, I think we've talked about it. I mean, like, the whole point for me, like, I brought this up, and as many NBA pods that we've done, I've probably brought this up in front of you too. But like, none of it matters. People can talk about the last 4 years of LeBron. No. They can talk about the draft picks. They can talk about the down years. D'Angelo Russell having a contract twice. Like all of the things that have been a negative light about this team. Bronny, even whatever you want to say, and all of it doesn't matter because in 2019, LeBron decided to sign a contract with the Los Angeles Lakers, and they've worked out the deal with Anthony Davis, and they won a championship. Right. None of it matters. Literally nothing else matters.
No. From that point on,
the position to win another one.
Right. The LeBron AD duo was cemented as a successful experiment because they won that championship. And now it may only be for a year or two, but LeBron, Luka, I don't think that necessarily needs to be a title winning endeavor for that to be a success. You have Luka Doncic on your team as long as he's not just debilitated by his massive weight all of a sudden. I think you're fine. What better free agent pitch to, the foreign influence in the game is not going anywhere. You talk about free agents want to go play with somebody, Luka Doncic in LA, done, sign it. That's your whole pitch. That's going to bring in so much that you can't replicate that. Like Wemby, sure, possibly. Spurs are run a little differently, not as flashy, not as showy. But those two, I would love to see a Spurs Lakers kind of sort of rekindled rivalry in the playoffs, just with Luka heading up the Lakers and Wemby heading up the Spurs. And I think it may take next year before both of those teams are fully ready for, paths that would cross at that point. But as a Thunder fan, I wish Luka was in the Eastern Conference this morning, but maybe they'll trade PJ Washington to like the Wizards or something. That's what he deserves. But yeah, right when we said, "Oh, the West isn't deep enough, the West isn't scary anymore." Yeah, okay.
We just had to draw lines at tiers. Like you had to look at it and go, okay, well, there's 5 teams in this tier, there's 8 in this tier, and there's 2 in this tier.
Yeah,
My math model doesn't add up, but you get my point. Like the
that's
part,
definitely
like
true, though.
the scariest part to me about just the idea of what this means, like I'm not blowing this out of proportion because honestly, truly, like the conversation around Luka was if he won the title last year, then he was the best player in the world. And obviously, you and I talked about that ad nauseum for 5 games. Hopefully 6 or 7 this year would be nice. But we talked about it ad nauseum. We were like, it's not true. And Jokic is still the best player in the world. And it is what it is. Yeah. But Doncic is third all. Like I'm just going to say it and we can go wherever we want with this. I do want to get to the Anthony Davis Dallas. We kind of touched on it, but I just want to, let all bygones be bygones because this should never happen again. Like we should never have this conversation of this caliber ever again. Luka Doncic is the 3rd highest scorer in NBA history.
Yeah. And now he's playing with LeBron James. I mean,
it just, again, crazy. I have no point. I'm just making sure that is just abundantly aware that the 3rd highest scorer in NBA history behind Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain is now on a team at 26 years old in the largest NBA market and was traded for an almost 32-year-old.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
And it took less first-round picks than, and we'll get to this, I'm not skipping ahead, but DeAaron Fox committed more first-round picks than Luka Doncic. Like
2 more.
That's insane. 300% more first-round picks for De'Aaron Fox, who...
Great way to put it.
The Kings flipped a coin between him and Halliburton and probably landed on Fox, and they still traded Halliburton. That's just the Kings. But that's a disaster. If the Kings are outmaneuvering you with anything, front office up, you have a problem. And when the damage from that is you trade away a generational superstar. How Harrison is employed, I don't know, because the whole presser today and he answered 3 questions and left Jason Kidd to die. He shouldn't be employed.
Kid's body language was really, really off.
Well, he was sacrificed to the Wolves. Be like, hey, what do you think of that guy's decision that he didn't tell you about? Like, if I was Kidd, I would have walked out too. I mean, what is he going to say? Like, hey, it's my job to coach the guys. I'm not on the phone wheeling and dealing and getting rid of the best player I'll ever coach in my coaching career for a guy that might play 20 games. Yeah. It's just I would hate to be that 29 first. I'll tell you that. Whoever they pick, forget it. That kid's career is over already. It's like you gotta bridge this gap that we created, this Grand Canyon sized just gap in trade capital. It's up to you. And that's not going to be a very good draft.
So the one thing I would like to, the one thing I want to make sure we get to, because I'm trying to give Harrison as much benefit of the doubt as possible. Whether that's 20% out of 100, sure, it's still a benefit of the doubt. Yeah. His point about like the future is 3 to 5 years and not 10. Mm-hmm. He's right.
Sure.
The issue is Luka is in that future who's 26 years old. If he had said
Luka's
this and Luka was
33,
he had said this and Luka was 33, I'd have been like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
like obviously, and you get, I would have said he's not an idiot. I've said that's fine. But like,
all right.
But like, you're a 26-year-old superstar, and you think the future is now to trade him for a 31-year-old. Let's just call Anthony Davis what he is now. He's a really great player, but he's not. The gap from Luka to Anthony Davis is larger than the gap from Anthony Davis to the 100th best player. Like it, and I don't care if there's 20 spots between that versus 80. The gap between Anthony Davis at the 30th best player to 100 is way smaller than the gap from Luka to Anthony Davis. It just is what it is. I mean,
guys like Anthony Davis get traded. Guys like Luka do not get traded. That's the difference. Because we see guys, and AD is better than both of these guys, but people like Mikal Bridges, for example, like they get traded. Very good player. And obviously, like I said, AD is better than him. Same thing with Gobert. But when you look at the draft capital alone in these hauls for these players, and you come to me like, "Hey, I traded Luka." Oh yeah, what's the first of our 17 draft picks from this? It's like, well, funny story. But actually, Utah got more draft picks in this than we did. That's just indefensible to me. I don't care if it's 59 and 60 for Ainge. I don't care. That's awful. And I mean, 30 whatever 4-year-old Durant 18 months ago commanded more assets than that. Actually, it's 2 years ago. I had it written down.
Still crazy that that's 2 years ago.
Just right. Well, now Durant's finally in the same spot for more than a year. But I mean,
that was the last time we got together was that trade. Like last time we did any quote emergency pod was Kyrie Irving, and then I got on here and I said to you verbatim, I said, if this happens and this happens, then Katie's going to be.
And Ishbia came in and said, "I got money."
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, right. You called that.
Nothing nothing in my wildest dreams would have ever given me. I'm only bringing it up because like nothing going to bed on Saturday night would have ever in a million years.
No,
I would have never ever believed that this was possible.
3 firsts and 2 swaps for Kevin Durant. They're going to be paying that trade out until 2029, which is when this pick hits. And selfishly, this is dropping my memory. The Thunder have an unprotected swap with Dallas in 28 when Kyrie is 35 or 36 and AD is similar in age. So from that standpoint, I don't know how Sam Presti does this, but that pick I think is going to have some serious value out in the market if it hits the market, because this team in 3 years is not going to be good. I don't care who they draft with this pick; it's just not going to happen.
What let's hit the Dallas side of things for a second, because I know we started with it, kind of went around it, but like from a basketball standpoint, again, sliver of the benefit of the doubt. That's like I'm just trying to be like I'm Lakers fan first, NBA podcaster analyst second. But at the same time, I can't even like begin to like think through like I know you mentioned the injuries. Like look, they have not had the injury luck this year coming off the finals. Like that is what it is.
Right.
Let's say their best playoff 5 is Kyrie. I'm doing this all off of memory. Like, let's say it's Kyrie, Clay, PJ, Anthony Davis, insert small forward here. I mean, literally pick anybody. I could care less.
Lively when he's back. Yeah.
Lively. But then at that point, you have Anthony Davis and sure. All right. Yeah, that's fine. PJ at the 3. Sure. That makes sense, actually. I kind of like that. That has the ceiling of a 7 seed. Of a 6. Let me be nice for a second. That is the ceiling of a 6 seed if they win enough games to close the season healthy, and that's just a far-fetched thought.
And they're not. Like, they're not getting out of a first-round series. Houston or Memphis is sending them home.
It's an insane thing to even think about because that is a really talented 5. It is.
No, it is
literally. It's literally the reason I'm bringing it up. It's the literal opposite of the thing that we said that was so shocking about how successful they were last year. Was they had guys that fit around Luka, and this is a team that they can do it again. Yeah, they overachieved early, and then they can do this again. I thought we were like, okay, they bring these guys back like they did, and we were all excited. Even Clay, I mean, we talked to I think the Clay thing was incredible. I think he plays 28 minutes in a playoff game. Like he basically just elevates what last year's team was.
Right. More consistent shooting, you hope.
None of that matters now.
No, it's all done. No. Any progress they made after last year, it's dead. I mean, how about this? What free agent is ever going to want to go play for Dallas in the immediate future? Like, they're not going to get any big fish in free agency. It's not going to happen. If that's what Luka got, got a 2 a.m. text after. Like, no, that's never.
I actually have it in front of me. He got a phone call. Oh, yeah, he did. He got a text and he got a voicemail. That's
pathetic. I hope Dirk Nowitzki buys his team and fires him in public. This is that your cornerstone, the guy that was going to build things for Dallas as high as he could. And the finals is certainly higher than anybody thought they were going to build last year. And you boot him out the door at whatever that is local time in the dark of night. when he's about to come back in a week and be out in front of your home fans again, which is the only reason you sell tickets, to be clear. And he's just gone, and there's no consultation, no consideration, nothing. I can't fathom being a player anywhere near his caliber and wanting to go play for that team under that front office group. I just can't. If that's how they treated Luka Doncic, and I'm averaging 18 and 5, why would I go play for them? If that's the severance package Luka gets, why am I even bothering? And I think Harrison will get fired because this is going to end his career. Anything sport, he'll be selling Nike at Foot Locker by the time the season's over. This is it's that bad. And I'm starting to question why in the world was he even hired as GM in the first place? I mean, if his career-defining accomplishment was having Steph Curry turn you away because of how ill-prepared you were to address the needs of one player, why in the hell are you coming in with a chance at molding a team around a player almost as good as Steph Curry in his prime? Because Steph in his prime was, as a Thunder fan, I'm very well aware. And he's got 4 championships. And you just, in less than a calendar year on the job, that guy's out the door.
Insanity. For
no reason. Because he's chubby. And you don't want to pay him $300 million for a cap that's never, ever, ever not going to go up. I think it's embarrassing. Dallas fans, are they still Dallas fans? Like, if I don't know many Mavericks fans, but how could you, for the sake of your own mental health, even continue to support that team at all?
Support the front office, the staff, all of it. Yeah.
It's just, and the players, again, I hate to harp on a 90-point loss so many times, but they went out there and got embarrassed because clearly, at this point, are they knocking on Harrison's door? Hey, you got 4 days. You don't want Luka here. I don't want to be here. Trade me. If you're trading people for peanuts.
I'd love to know what Kyrie thinks about this right now. 24 hours.
I can't believe Kyrie acted normal for 2 years and this is what he gets. Kyrie Irving was a menace to everything orderly about the NBA and how things go. And he finally stopped all the antics and got back to basketball for his benefit and, frankly, for us, the viewers, our benefit. And this is what happens. He's going to turn into Kanye West on steroids at this point. He's going to demand a trade. He probably already has, to be honest with you. He's I came in here, I redefined my entire social image. We made a finals trip, and I get to play with Anthony Davis for a year or two now.
They never played together, right? I think, and the joke was Danny Ainge always wanted to reunite them, and he kind of did, which is kind of funny. Well, I think they genuinely like playing together. I genuinely think it reached a point where those two guys, when they were on the floor together, it was like basketball harmony. It reached a point where I was if they were on, no matter what, it was going to be on one corner of my TV. It just was.
Sure.
If they were both healthy. One really weird wrinkle. Obviously, these things can change on a dime. March 21st, 2025.
Mm-hmm.
The Dallas Mavericks, which is right in the middle of March Madness. No one's going to give a rat's behind, but you get the point. The Dallas Mavericks play the Detroit Pistons. Would you like to know what the theme night is that night in Dallas?
Oh, Jesus. Something
Slovenian night.
Oh, well, that's canceled. That's
I tried to go on the website right now and pull up the form. You can click on any other form. They've taken the form down. It's just a generic form that takes you to the list, and
you can buy look at Harrison's bio to see if that's there. Good Lord.
So I say all that, by the way, to just say that all of this might age poorly. I just want to be transparent with people and say he could actually have something wrong, and there could be just this or that. I'm with it, right? There could be something that we just don't know, and we're going to keep that in the back of our mind. But as this current moment, though, I think the way I would summarize everything in the last 45 minutes is it's sheer management of a roster and I don't even word this. It's sheer malpractice. Like we haven't even gotten to
This
the Pau
job ain't for
Gasol
everybody.
comparisons,
Yeah.
but like it's bad. Like I don't even know how you let this happen. How you can sit there and think, because I understand why the Lakers did that with Pau Gasol. It was 100%
Right.
like, hey, we can offer you this. The trade market was different back then. Like that
Sure.
wasn't actually as
2008,
far out of the norm of possibility, right?
It was just so sudden. There was no
But like you
market
said,
build up.
like you said earlier, 29 teams would pick the phone up if they put him out for the market in 5 days, for the 5 days left.
Immediately. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
Every team, 29 teams would be like,
And
here's our
27 of them would have had a better offer by default.
It's 1,000% true. It's like I don't even. That's the part of the malpractice that I don't understand. Is why do it the way you did it? It took us 40 minutes to bring it up, but like, why? Why did they do that? I like, and look, here I am, fan first. I'll just admit that, fan first, as we all should be, right? And we do this, even people that do this professionally. Sure. We should be fan first. Here I am asking why they did the trade for the way they did it, and my team's the one with the guy.
Right.
It's insanity.
How many people do you think had to look at what Harrison had put together and let him walk out the door? Theoretically speaking, you put up the phone, but how many people had to look at that and either lied to save their job or were so shell-shocked they truly couldn't just be like, hey, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. You take this and you should burn this and don't tell anybody this was your idea. Like, lose Pelinka's phone number, throw your phone in the water, like just or the microwave. I mean, I hope to God there was some sort of Hard Knocks camera thing behind the scenes happening in Dallas. I'm sure there wasn't. We're not that lucky, but I want to, like the Giants front office handling the Saquon thing. I want to be in the room. I want to hear what was said and how
those videos exist, but it's
this.
normally draft day and stuff like the Kings had that famous one
that's true.
where they wanted to draft Nick Stauskas. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
It took me a second. Michigan guy hit that big shot in the tournament. Like they drafted Nick Stauskas. I think it was like between Nick and somebody who ended up being a multi-time All-Star. I can't remember who it was that draft, but the whatever his name is picked up the phone, was like Stauskas. We want Stauskas. It's just, it aged awesome. It aged so perfect. And no, we want Davis, Anthony Davis.
And that's really it.
That's really what we got.
Throw a pick in there just so I don't lose my job tonight. And then,
I don't know how to.
They need to fire him.
But is there anything else that we hadn't gotten to that we'd like to talk about? Because I'm sure I've reached the sheer point of just sheer.
I'll say this: I will never again shame someone for a trade machine idea. Ever. Bad trades happen now. The precedent has been set. You want to trade LeBron for Ousmane Dieng? Do it. Sure. Throw a second round pick in there because who knows? Fan trade creation ideas are so back. And of course it happened to the Lakers, who
are the meme of it.
Right. Of course it did. No one
Bill
said
Simmons, Bill Simmons just got 5 years of goodwill from like you, especially. It just sounds like. I mean, Bill Simmons is famous for this. His whole last 5 years of his career has been like the thing that everyone loves is the random trade machine stuff. Like CJ McCollum literally replied to a tweet of his a couple weeks ago.
That was funny.
It's like it's a real thing. Like it gives you real perspective of like these guys' jobs are really difficult. Like it really does. Like I really think about that. I'm like, okay, but I have no sympathy for him because he offered it himself.
Right, which is the most insane part of all of this.
Like Pelinka, like we said earlier, you have to just say yes and just figure it out later.
Oh, 100%.
I don't think it's been reported. How long do you think the gap was from the time they originally called to the time they accepted it? It had to have been
37 seconds. I mean, what do we? He said they met and kicked the tires. Like, are we sure we want Luka Doncic? Are we sure? He does turn 26 in 3 weeks. Are we sure?
For the price of a almost 32-year-old guy that gets hurt every year.
Luka could miss 2 years like Embiid did to start his career, and now basically has already. He's still 27 at the end of that. It's ridiculous. He could not play for 2 full seasons starting today, and he would still be a presidential term younger than Anthony Davis with certainly a higher ceiling. And he would still be probably a top 20 player on a minutes restriction coming back from whatever he had. And they just, I don't get it. It makes no sense. There's nothing
you could say.
I don't really have a lot of words. I mean, we just had 45 minutes of words, but there's no words to like, how do you defend this? Luka's going to have 75 points on Dallas the first time they play. I can't wait to watch it. If there's anything that's going to like lock him in as far as like his physical and his mental, he did them so many favors just with his development and what he's done to bring the franchise to an NBA Finals, which is not a common thing for them. And for this to be the midnight thank you is just it's indefensible. That might be the word of the whole thing.
Just for fun, they play April 9th, 7:30. So whatever you're doing, April 9th, listeners.
Well, the Lakers play Oklahoma City twice in 3 nights somewhere down the road. I can't wait to watch
just kidding. They play February 25th at 10 p.m.
Right, I knew it was a couple weeks. Yeah.
I missed right. I was scrolled right past it. I
If
saw
that's
the
on TNT. I'm going to be furious because I want to hear Chuck and Shaq at halftime of that game.
I can tell you by the 10 o'clock start, it probably is.
Good.
Okay, so not only did this happen, but literally we started recording this at give or take. Oh, we started recording this basically the same exact time that this full trade came out with Shams here. So in addition to what we just talked about for the last 45 minutes, DeAaron Fox is now a San Antonio Spur. He's been teamed up with Victor Wembanyama. I'll read the full trade details for folks, and they can go see it from the Shams tweet as well. Just for context, this has 7.1 million views in an hour. The Anthony Davis trade, I'm calling it because that's just the sheer lunacy of all of this. The first player I could think of in the trade was Anthony Davis. How funny. The Anthony Davis trade got like 62 million views in the first hour, like you said earlier. So just for fun.
Yeah.
Spurs got DeAaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin. Shout out to him. The Kings got, don't lose me here. Follow along. The Kings got Zach LaVine, Sidi Sissoko, a guy that I kind of warmed up to last year. 3 first-round picks, a 2025 Charlotte, which is basically a top 4 pick. So call it what you want. 2027 San Antonio Spurs. Yeah, sorry, Josh. And then a 2031 Minnesota pick, who by then, Anthony Edwards might be by himself on that team. So
yeah,
you never know. 3 second-round picks, 2025 Chicago, 28 Denver, and 28 own back. I love that when they get their own back in these trades. It's always my favorite. And the Bulls we're going to go through this. I can't. It's interesting. The Bulls get Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, and their own 2025 pick via San Antonio. I said before the pod, Trey Jones, I got it mixed up with Tyus. Tyus is who I was referring to, was the Duke national champion. Trey was
right. I figured
Trey was on that Zion team, though. They were really good. Okay. So this trade actually, in the grand scheme of things, really only matters for San Antonio because they got the best player. And like, I hate to be the boring guy that just starts with that, but like DeAaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama, we should have kind of known that like when Chris Paul goes and plays with a generational star, that they bridge the gap to the next guy with him. Like, we should have just known that DeAaron Fox was going to be a Spur. I know he asked for it, but like, he shows up on your team years ago and nurtures them like a mother with a baby. Literally, that's what he did. They were 48 and 40, I think is what it was, right? A mother and a baby is what that relationship was. Chris Paul nurtured them to now what they are as the second best team in the NBA, the best team in the West. They have an MVP favorite.
No, he gets all the credit for that.
And now DeAaron Fox and Chris Paul will have at minimum half a season together. And Chris Paul has already spent half a season doing the same thing to Victor Wembanyama. I know it's not a point guard, but like, let's just be honest. At this point, Chris Paul can change anyone's life. Like, it just is what it is. He's like the home makeover like show. You remember that show on ABC growing up? The home makeover. I think it's kind of making a return. Chris Paul is Ty Pennington in this regard. Like that's literally
Right.
that is the most Bill Simmons comparison I've ever given you in 3 years doing this. But it's honestly might be the best thing I've ever said. And the fact that De'Aaron Fox, like the fact that for me this elevates De'Aaron Fox in a way that I didn't think was possible because of the combination of playing with those two guys. Like, who cares about the other two parts of this trade? It literally doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's where I would
I'm not a big math guy. That's 6 picks for the Kings coming back for De'Aaron Fox. Not 1, 6. Whoever's next in Dallas at GM tomorrow should probably take some notes on that one, because that's what that should look like. And if De'Aaron Fox, who, as we've said, good player, that's insanity coming off the heels of Luka for 1 first-round pick. And again, to your point, the Charlotte first, you will not have to sit long on the draft broadcast to hear that one called out. I'm going to say that. The CP3 piece of it, I think his value mostly lies in his mentorship at this point. And like you said, he really got this whole part of his career going in OKC with it was him, Schroeder, and Shea, the 3-guard lineup that went from 0.1% projected chance to make the playoffs to a game 7 in the bubble. And, if Lou Dort doesn't get blocked at the buzzer, who knows? But just the heights he took that team to from their, perceived kind of level of play, because they were tanking. They didn't take long, but when they tanked, they tanked. And I think he gets a lot of credit for what Shea has done since and will continue to do. Because I think having Chris Paul there for just a year did a lot of things for him in a positive light. And I think that can be translated to Wembanyama as well. Even differing positions. It's just a matter of that guy's been in the NBA so long, playing as well as he has. It's hard to be that age and be in the league, let alone anywhere close to that level. And I start to wonder, I think they would keep him around. I don't think there's any kind of tax implications where they would need to waive him or flip him or anything like that. So not only is he going to help the guy in Wembanyama that you're going to build around, unless the Dallas GM ends up in San Antonio. And now as a bonus, you're bringing in De'Aaron Fox to kind of, will Stephon Castle kind of overtake him eventually? Probably. The 5-year plan is probably Castle. The 2-year plan could be De'Aaron Fox. That's a hell of a 2-year plan, or whatever the length of his contract is. But just to have essentially, like you said, a free half a season of another major acquisition, reaping the benefits of playing with and speaking with and just being around Chris Paul. That I think is invaluable. And I think we'll see positive results from Fox. And it's honestly hard to distinguish what from Wembanyama is just the ascension we know is going to happen because he's that good. I still think Chris deserves some credit for that, but it's not like a Shea in the sense that Shea wasn't supposed to be this good. And I think the Chris Paul period of his career, that one season, really set the ball rolling for how good Shea is right now. I think Wembanyama has a much higher floor and honestly a higher ceiling than Shea did. But again, I think that Chris Paul being in San Antonio this year was a great move by the Spurs. And I hate that, some health concerns has kept the head coach from being that mentor as well, because I think that's invaluable stuff from Popovich too. But Chris Paul being in your building has been a net positive. Even if as it wanes on the court, off the court, I think it's immeasurable. And I think it's invaluable. So I like the trade for the Spurs. I think they're going to be a very frisky possible play-in, kind of similar to what the Thunder did when they almost got out of the play-in 2-3 years ago. I think this is going to be a season to remember, not for what they did this year, but for what it sets up for the Spurs 2-3 years down the road as we enter the start of Wembanyama's peak.
Yeah, so to your point about the Spurs playoffs part of it, then I have one more thing on the Bulls, I think, and then we can get out of here. The Spurs are 12th, 21-25, 24-24 Golden State, 24-24 Sacramento, Dallas 26-24, Phoenix at the 8th seed, 25-23, and then Minnesota is 27-22. There's basically not a gap between Los Angeles Lakers at 5 and the Mavericks at 9. So like the West still has a lot of shaking up to do, but like the Kings got worse, the Mavs got worse, the Timberwolves aren't getting any better by the day. I watched the Suns Warriors game the other night for way longer than I ever thought I would, and at one point I went from I love the Suns, I think they could be sneaky in the playoffs, to oh my God, this team is terrible and I can't wait for them to lose in the first round. So I don't know what to think about them. The Clippers, I don't know how they're I don't know how they're still winning basketball games. It makes no sense to me.
Norm Powell and a prayer. I mean that.
So you basically have 5 contenders, but the Spurs, I'm not throwing them into the 6 seed conversation all of a sudden. I'm not having them double their seed spot, but they're only 7 games back from the Clippers. Like this changes that. Like their ceiling officially just rose. Maybe
they're a better team than they were an hour ago.
The one thing I'll say too that I think is like I kind of laid out the case for everybody else in this trade, because at this point the Kings, it is what it is. As much as I like Zach LaVine, I think he's a good fine player. I think the picks were just what they are, and maybe you don't even have some bonus this time next year. But I think the Bulls, I think they finally hit the reset button. Like obviously getting rid of LaVine is what the whole idea, but this has to be the final straw that says, okay, we've been middling for a while. We just I know they've overachieved recently. Like I'd have to look at the roster again and kind of like they're 10th right now because Philly's terrible and hurt.
Right.
Toronto's not trying to win. Chicago is 10 because of sheer circumstance right now.
They play Atlanta in the play-in every season. It's just I can
Washington,
set
Charlotte,
my calendar
Toronto, all behind them. Like even if you just look at okay, Kobe White is an incredible player. Giddey, these are guys that I would I think they're keeping in the next few years. Ayo Dosunmu, Matthias Buzelis.
Right.
That's really where the list ends.
Vucevic has to be next, right? Is that? I mean,
honestly, I forgot he was on the roster.
Is that domino going to fall finally? Is he a Laker?
I'd have to look at his contract. I'd have to look at his contract. Is he not is he not an expiring at this point? I thought he was.
He may be.
Let me just double check, because that may solve all of their problems. He has. Oh Jesus, I forgot he signed an extension.
Summer.
20 million this year, 21.1 next year, unrestricted in 26-27. So keep him for 1 year.
If they move Zach LaVine, they can find a home for Vucevic.
Okay, 34-35. He'd be 36 at that UFA deal. So that, I mean, at the end of the day, he would just be he would be valuable just to keep around and continue to try to lose games. He alone is not going to win more games to make them
no, he's not going to move the needle to the point where you're worried about the draft pick not being what it was. Yeah.
I just hope for the Bulls fans' sake and for the sake of the health of the NBA that the Bulls can start to win games. And I think Kevin Huerter's valuable. I think Zach Collins and Trey Jones. These are all guys that they can flip. These are all guys that also can bridge the gap. Yeah. They're all bridge the gap players. I think they're all very valuable in that regard. But this deal is literally, like I started with 10 minutes ago, this deal begins and ends with the fact that DeAaron Fox is now Victor Wembanyama's point guard. And even if Stephon Castle, I like the guy, I think it's a good point. But even if Stephon Castle's the 5-year plan, Fox is I think we're undervaluing Fox a little bit in that regard. He's probably really he's probably the real 5-year plan. They probably brought him in. They're probably going to give him the extension. I think actually he already had the extension either way. I think they're just going to honor the extension, right? So either way, I don't know, when you can get De'Aaron Fox for even if it's that many picks, who really cares, San Antonio? They have enough guys they feel good about. They clearly think they can win next year. That's a lot of picks.
Right. That is a lot of picks.
3 first-round picks is a lot of
picks. Several
of
them not their own, though. So, I mean, that's
true. That's true. I forgot about that.
That's, that is something to point out.
This trade, I'd be shocked if there's anything else. But, what? Yeah. I guess I'll ask it this way. I don't expect you to pull out a Kevin Durant trade out of your behind. I'll just say it because it's one of the proudest moments I have as a podcaster. I'm only bringing it up because something else can happen. Obviously,
the deadline's not until Thursday. We have so many more hours of nonsense to probably cover.
Is there something that you're looking? Is there a team? Not necessarily a prediction, but is there a team that you're looking for to make a deal other than your own? or maybe give me something the Thunder can do. Finally, right? Just be like, okay, is this the year we're doing it? But like, is there something is there something you're keeping an eye on? I guess would be my question.
Well, definitely down in Miami because of I won't swear on your podcast. The individual they
I don't want to
have
get into
that
all that, but yes.
is unserious. Just look up what Kevin Garnett said about it, and that's my thoughts. And he has much more of a place to say it than I do. But when legends of the game that set you up to make $50 million a year and cry about it are not happy with you. So Pat Riley, who found a deal for Shaq about 6 hours after he made him mad. I hope Jimmy Butler is a wizard on Thursday. I'll just say it. I hope he goes somewhere he just does not want to be. And I think he may even have a no trade, but maybe not. I don't know. That has to be resolved. I think I wouldn't even call it a domino because it's already halfway fallen over just based on what Butler's done and been suspended. And he likely will never play for the Heat again, and rightfully so. And I'm more of a player empowerment guy than you would think, but there's just I got nothing for Jimmy Butler at this point. So for Heat fans and honestly the core of guys the Heat have that have kept them competitive, which has kind of been their MO. They've been like the zombie 8 seed. And so I think that Butler will be addition by subtraction. I'm interested to see if the Warriors make a desperate swing to give Curry some, even if it's naive, semblance of a championship shot with a deal like that. There's been a lot of speculation about LeBron being traded, which I mentioned earlier. It would be Cleveland or Golden State
today for what it's worth,
which is kind of important when I know for a fact he has no trade clause. So it's Beal that has not Butler.
Beal does have one, but but those guys would be in the whole idea was they were going to get swapped for each other too. Like Beal would have waived it for Butler. Like, I don't know. I don't know about all that.
Something's going to happen in Miami. I don't know that they can necessarily vastly improve with this because you're basically just removing a negative part of your team at this point. On the court, when Butler cares, he's a great player. Health has not been his strong suit as of late, which is unfortunate with any player we enjoy watching. And that relationship soured past the point of no return like a month ago when these suspensions first started. So that is one I'm definitely keeping an eye on. And then is there some sort of Ainge or Presti magic coming at the deadline? Thunder haven't been super active. Last year took a big swing at Gordon Hayward, and he talked his way out of the league. So I hope that if we do something, it does end up a bit better than that. The Thunder's biggest enemy right now is the limit on roster size because we physically cannot keep hitting on guys and keep them on the roster. AJ Mitchell is out for the year. Unfortunately, he was showing promise in the second unit. Aaron Wiggins dropping 40 helps. The Thunder could definitely use a boost to the bench. It may be just a temporary symptom, but their second unit has not been great. The Shea on-off stuff is pretty concerning. And again, small sample size, but windows are so precious in this league. And if you have a problem and you have window to address it, you would love to see a little bit of movement. And the Thunder have the most assets in the NBA. So if they want someone, they can go in and get him, whether it's, a Gordon Hayward type or a Jimmy Butler type. We're not trading for Jimmy Butler, but if we want a player of that caliber, we were able to go get him. I'm excited to see Chet back in a little bit here. Hartenstein came back, got hurt again. So sounds like a minor thing, but you'd love to see him suited up. And those two have not played a game together yet. So hopefully down towards the end of February, entering March, we see those two on the court because we really don't know the Thunder ceiling yet just because of how well they've played with each other out or, with both out, they're scraping together wins. So, as a Thunder fan, I'm excited to see if and when Presti decides to act on the gallons of blood in the water at this point. And Fox I would have said Fox if we did this afternoon as someone I was looking out for. But
sure.
As I sit here actively refreshing Twitter, Shams' page to make sure we don't have to cover a third trade. We're safe for right now.
Wouldn't be tonight, that's for sure. Because these two alone were an hour's worth of good content.
This is So, yeah, love the deadline. It's been a bit underwhelming as of late, but I suspect that with the buildup we've had in the last 24 hours or so, now to Thursday should be plenty eventful.
Yeah, that's a great way to put a bow on it. We'll mid-season awards are coming because the All-Star breaks just around the corner. That'll be the next time we probably do something for the NBA, just because the deadline the last few years, I just assume I'm not going to do a pod because it just is. It's the end of a week.
This may be the deadline pod.
Yep, and we're going to treat it like it is. It's the emergency one, as the title will state. But look, to recap, Luka Doncic is a Los Angeles Laker. Anthony Davis is a Dallas Maverick. And that's pretty much it. You didn't miss anything else. DeAaron Fox is a San Antonio Spur. Let us know your thoughts in the comments on YouTube. If you're on one of our many lovely podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, just let us know with a 5-star rating and review. Greatly appreciate it. Flood it up so we can see all the people, because 60 something 80 million trillion people saw that trade. Like, literally, I showed my wife, I could not scroll through Twitter and not a single. It took me about 15 minutes before I finally saw something non-NBA related.
I was scrolling through active players that I don't even follow, just over and over and over again.
This is ridiculous. Hopefully something like this never happens again and we can have normal NBA trades again. Maybe this starts, like you said, an epidemic. I don't know. But I don't look the sheer lunacy of this. It makes me just all over the place and not know how to close out a podcast. But just remember, nobody's safe in any league at this point. So, on behalf of Grayson, on behalf of everybody that supports this show, greatly appreciate you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Go 2 Pointers, SeatGeek, link at the top of the description. That's always there. If you're a Dallas fan and you don't want to go to basketball games, those tickets are going to be cheap anyway, right? Lakers fans, it's $20. It's not going to save you much when Luka plays his first game, but go 2 Pointers. It's there. Without further ado, this has been the 2 Pointers podcast. On behalf of Grayson here, I'm Trevor Everett, and we will hopefully see you when it's a little bit more normal next week.